Yeah. So you see how dedicated the guest speakers are of today. Jorn is at a conference, but he managed to get a quiet spot. Jorn, you said you had to sell your liver for good Wi-Fi, so put it on the tab when that we reimburse your liver, Jorn. Yeah.
Thanks.
So time to get your final drinks before we get started. We have about 50 HR professionals and founding professionals of fast-growing companies who will be joining or subscribed. So that's a lovely bunch of people. So I see people are still dripping in. So, well, in 1 minute, we'll get started. So excuse me in advance for a bit the nasal sound. I normally don't sound like this, but I had a bit of a cold, so we'll have to do it like this. Okay, let's get started with respect for the people who are on time. So welcome everyone. Guess people will still be joining the webinar, and that's perfectly fine. So welcome to the Hire Fast or Die Trying webinar. I guess you're all a big fan of hip hop music and maybe of 50 Cent. So you saw the link between this webinar and the title. So how to prepare your hiring engine for hyper growth, and welcoming 3 experts who have lived the situation currently or several times before. So they will be sharing some lessons learned and some very interesting facts on how to do that, yeah, and on not how to do that, yeah. So it saves you some very valuable time. So we're not going to talk about hip hop. We're going to talk about recruitment, and which is currently one of the toughest professions in the history of mankind, you would say, if you read the news. And we're not only saying that, also Forbes is stating that in a recent review that 75% of recruiters say their job is harder than ever. And also maybe you've seen the recent article in Werven, it's a Dutch online HR magazine, that stated that 1 out of 3 recruiters is overworked and is considering a career switch. So stakes are very high, I would say, in recruitment, and especially for organizations who have a very ambitious business plan. Well, stakes are even more higher. So, and this is the overall goal of this webinar, yeah, based on the vision and the strategy and the tactics of our experts, speakers. We'll hope that you can gain more efficiency, more effectiveness, and more fulfillment in your recruitment department, but also in growing and executing your business plan, because that is the main focus of today, especially for fast growing companies. So we'll dive in a couple of minutes, but I want to start with 1 minute of a bit of high conceptual theory or insights why we're in this type of situation today. And a lot of people call it the war for talent, but I recently checked and we're about 7.7 billion people on planet Earth, and the world population is growing at a pace of 196,000 people a day. So that's why I always find it very curious when people talk about we have a lack of talent. With about 8 billion people on planet Earth, can we really talk about a war for talent? I think the most um, um, correct way of putting it is that we have a skill gap, and that is very true. We have a gap between the talent that is, sorry? Anyone? Sorry. It's best if you enter the room, you mute yourself. Otherwise, we can join maybe private conversations, and maybe that's not completely the goal for you. So we have a skill gap. We have a gap between the talent that is there and the skills that are required to do certain jobs. That is for sure that there's a gap there. But I think what is important to say is that sometimes, and I discussed this with Lou van Berendonk from he's an HR professor at the University of Antwerp, and he was pretty bold about it. He said, well, we're actually doing it partially for ourselves and doing it to ourselves, because 90% of recruiters or hiring managers are still only focused on people having that exact diploma or this exact experience in this very specific role. And if you do that, you end up in this very narrow pool of candidates and very expensive pool of candidates. While at the meantime, I think there's a lot of these 8 billion people around the globe are equally valuable when you look at these people from a skills and an attitude-based perspective. So I think this situation is really inviting us all to have a broader look at what is talent and to look for people who might not fit the bill perfectly, but on a competence and behavioral attitude level might be very valuable candidates. And this is exactly where our technology, Tracy, helps you find these people automatically on different job boards and get them very neatly shortlisted in your recruitment dashboard. So enough about that. Let me introduce the interesting speakers to you today. Iman, what would you say? Ladies first, can you tell us a bit about yourself and what you do for integrity and what value does integrity bring to your customers?
Definitely. Thank you, Jorn. So my name is Iman. I'm born and raised in Belgium, but moved to London 8 years ago. And I've been in recruitment and HR for the past 10 years. And with integrity, I've been with them for the past 2 years as a head of people and talent. That means I'm responsible for HR, but also for talent acquisition, which is really recruitment. What does really integrity do? We're an ethical hacking platform. We specialize within cybersecurity. That means that we make sure that we can make companies secure on their cybersecurity, on their digital assets, and make sure that actually the bad hackers don't really hack them. That is what integrity does.
That's a very noble cause, and I think very interesting in these times with tech ventures growing all over the place. So very welcome, and thank you for accepting my invitation to share your knowledge.
Thank you.
So I asked in the preparation, tell us something about yourself, Iman, that isn't stated on your resume, on your own resume. Are you willing to do that? Did you think about that?
More than happy. No, I'm more than happy to do that. Clearly, being a recruitment at HR, I sometimes ask these questions. So clearly, I need to have an answer for myself.
Yeah.
Doing recruitment and HR can be very stressful. So I've actually learned throughout the years that boxing and kickboxing is a very good stress reliever, because it's for me, it's a sport that you literally black out and you only literally think about that moment when you're actually boxing. So fun fact about me is that I do kickboxing as a hobby and as a stress reliever.
That's cool. That's cool. And I can imagine also for your personal safety, that's also a benefit.
Yeah, although I'm quite short, so I'm always thinking if I have like someone who's like 1.90 m, I'm not sure how I'm able to hit him. But yeah, it's more a stress reliever than anything else.
Super. Thanks a lot, Iman. Thank you and welcome. So the next guest speaker I would like to introduce is Jorn. Thank you, Jorn, for taking the time of your conference to be with us today.
Yeah, thank you for the invite, Jochen, and the introduction, Iman. So apologies for the noise. I'll definitely mute after I've finished. So I'm Jorn, one of the co-founders of Henchman. We sell technology to lawyers. We're actually one of the few, I think, entities that can actually take money from lawyers and not the other way around. We are a team of 23 people. Lorenz is one of our board members, and we use integrity for our software. So we use ethical hackers to really make it as secure as possible.
Cool.
And fun fact, I mean, I don't think it's that fun, but you know, also a stress relief. I recently started picking up boxing, actually 6 months ago.
Wow.
I agree with Iman. And kite surfing is like, it's a slight addiction, I have to say, because it has everything. It has a beach, it has sport, it has sun. It's lovely. So excited to be part of this webinar. Thank you.
Super. Thanks a lot, Jorn. And last but not least, multi-tech venture builder, Lorenz. Thank you also for joining this conversation. And welcome.
My pleasure. I see that you used the Pitch Drive logo.
Well, I could have
quite
used
difficult for my profile, indeed.
I could have used 50 other logos, Lorenz, but
so
you can explain
I
yourself.
typically have so I'm Belgian, live in Ghent, and in the past I've co-founded quite some tech ventures, including Netlog, a social network, and dating too. In cryptocurrencies, Delta, in property data platform, Realo, and it's quite a long list, so I won't do that, do all the name dropping. Today I have two main activities, which is one of them is Star Apps. That's a boutique venture builder where we aim to create ourselves and with our own money 3 to 4 ventures per year in prop tech, in fintech, or in lifestyle. And next to that, I'm co-founder in about 40 ventures, always early stage or early investor in many cases also, of course. So you may think that I'm quite busy, but actually there's not a lot of people who work directly for me. There's no one really waiting at 9 a.m. in the morning, whereas Lorenz. So I have quite an okay life. I have to be. Maybe that could maybe be my fun fact.
True.
The fun fact maybe is more that I chosen is that when I was a teenager, I started a bulletin board system, which is the predecessor of internet, at the age of 13. And I consider that one of my first ventures, of course. But doing that, I also ended up running several wearers and hacking and demo groups where I gained a lot of experience in how to recruit people, because that's actually what we were doing, recruiting people to trade programs, to hack into programs back then. It was different times. I was a minor anyway, so nothing illegal. Back then. We also did a lot of demos, and a lot of people that I worked with are now in the gaming industry and create a lot of really cool gaming companies. So it's a fun fact only, but it was really also a very fun time for me back then, because it was volunteering. It was not for money, and it was just we really had a great time doing so.
Cool stuff. Thank you also for joining, Lorenz. Super. So my name is Jochen. As I said, I founded Tracy 4 years ago as a recruitment support system because I think, and we think that recruiters have a lot of tasks to do, not always tasks that add direct human value. So we try to automate the sourcing process in a very intelligent way. So let's jump into the topics of today. We have a lot of ground to cover. We have about 5 topics, and thank you for the people attending who send over some questions in advance. So I've built them into this webinar. So if you have any question, please feel free to unmute yourself and direct the question to the person you wanted to direct it to. And if we'll have enough time, we'll have a long or a short answer. So feel free to engage. Yeah. So the topics: strong employer branding, lean recruitment process, available talent, safeguard culture, and supporting recruitment tech. As I read through them, I see it's a very ambitious agenda, but we'll see where we get to. So first topic, employer branding. So Iman, if I can start with you ladies first. You've been around as a hiring and a founding professional for quite some time, and you see a lot of traction on the part of employer branding, being it more important than it used to be. How have you seen this evolution play out?
Definitely. I think the last 5 years, there's been a tremendous increase in employer branding. One of the biggest things that impacted us, and this comes from LinkedIn itself, where this for us our biggest tool to utilize employer branding, is clearly there was a pandemic for 2 years. People utilize a lot of digital tools, platforms to find roles, to make aware that they're leaving their jobs and everything. So finding new jobs and made it for employee branding much more difficult for companies, especially small companies, to make them aware that they also have roles, to make a difference within the big corporates. Because you can imagine a Gartner or Microsoft or Google are constantly spamming people on LinkedIn ads, have much more resources, can do big campaigns from Facebook to Instagram to even LinkedIn. So their employer brand is always top of mind, versus smaller companies is much more difficult. So that means that for smaller companies, especially startups and scale-ups, need to focus much more on it. Even for integrity ourselves, the past 2 years, we really started off purely utilizing just the job ads on LinkedIn.
Oh, sorry, someone.
No worries.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
That we used to just utilize LinkedIn ads, whereas now we're really at the peak of moment where we say, no, we actually as a brand need to get out there, because we see a decrease in actually applications, but also people are just not aware of us. They're more aware of our competitors that do much more online and on socials. So employer brand right now is one of our key strategies to grow even more our brand, but also as an organization to just make sure that people are aware that we are an employer that's actively hiring within our industry.
Okay, and what is the essence of employer branding for you? Where are you really putting your money on, to be very pragmatic?
It's really LinkedIn, making sure our career page is up to speed and up to date, that we have a lot of visuals of our culture, because when we hire people, they want to know, what is the culture like? What will I get into? Where are you even based? As an international employer, it's important for us to even visualize this, to say we are based in London, we are based in Amsterdam and in Belgium, Singapore, South Africa, and to actually show us this through LinkedIn career page, our career page on our websites. We are actually investing a lot in that. We're starting to look at different other socials, such as Instagram, Facebook. We've seen analytics that a lot of graduates are more on Instagram and other socials than just LinkedIn itself. And just making sure that we cover all these social channels. We hired an employer brand manager that actually only takes care of this element right now, and also about our internal communication, so that everything that we have internal as a culture, we can actually broadcast this externally to focus on hiring.
Wow.
That's the essence for us.
Wow. And that you kind of answered my second question. Do you have a person dedicated to do that, or is that someone of the normal product brand team? Yep.
No, as you said in the beginning yourself, recruitment has become very tough for us. We used to be able to just cover it a bit ourselves with a bit of pictures and being quite an amateur, but realize we just can't do it. Just because it has become such an essence, a piece of our growth. So we hired someone 3 months ago that joined us and is now really focusing on this, and we've already seen an impact the last past months, because we had a cultural event as a kickoff, and she's been able to look at all the visuals, entire videos, things that we actually can implement on our career pages. So we actually already see an impact today.
Wow. How is that for you, Jorn? Do you have someone dedicated, or is it a task of someone of the normal team? How is that for henchmen?
So I get that Integrity would have a dedicated person to do that. For sure, they're at a different stage than we are. We are 23 people. So for me, employer branding starts from the founders. It's what you do with your people. It's the values that you portray. It's it's how they talk about you. I mean, most of our hires, our last 10 hires, are people that were talking to their friends or their former colleagues. Like, you should really, I'm having so much fun. It's so cool. We're really making a difference. That in our stage, this is what really makes the difference and what creates the employer brand. Yes, it's good to have a company page with some values and some team pictures and stuff like that. I think, but it really is what your colleagues are thinking about when they think of your company, two former colleagues, in essence, right? And then of course the layers on top of that are the ones that Iman mentioned, for sure.
Yeah. And do you stimulate this employee branding? I would almost say. Yeah.
No. I don't think it's something that you can ask of people. Hey, can you talk a bit more about how cool we are? It's something that happens, but it's because you create an atmosphere where they feel really good, they have fun stuff, that they have a role that has impact.
Wow. Okay. Is that aligned with your experience, Lorenz? You've done it multiple times, so
yeah. I hate to say, but maybe sometimes I'm a little bit more old school.
Okay.
Even though we were, when I look at Netlock, for example, and also at Realo and at most of the companies now with Busy also, at PitchDrive, it is very important to be authentic. And if you start too much doing employer branding and culture branding, there's a risk of it to be seen as something fake. And what I see, especially tech people, they really like authentic environments and not to arrive in a fake culture. And culture can only be a culture when it's authentic, in my opinion. So that's what we do. Basically, the biggest characteristic of a venture is success. And I think sharing the successes is extremely important. Not just on LinkedIn, it's always cool, but it's more like almost personal branding for a lot of people sometimes. But really go through the press, and once you have an article about your first 100,000 users, your first 1,000,000 users, an award you get, a new product. People love good news in general. Press also loves good news. A fundraise, of course, even a small one. Try to communicate about it and get it on more mainstream platforms than just social posts. And it also gives more authenticity when you post something not from your own press release, but something which has appeared in the press. So I'm really a big fan of press in general. It doesn't have to be written press, or just anything goes there. And that's where you see, certain reconnaissance of what you've been building, of what you are building. And every time we do something in an article, you can see the CVs coming in very, very fast. It gives an enormous boost. Because people just like to follow companies where success and where growth is. And it's not only for them, it's also for the people around them, their lovers, their parents. They want to be able to be part of something successful. And that's where I also see the biggest issue often is getting those first hires. because often they have to work relatively lonely on certain products, and those are the most important ones often, and they create the culture that the company gets in a later stage. But I think, just in short, I think press is incredibly important, and then of course amplifying this through social channels and just sharing as much success as possible.
Wow. Okay, that's
definitely agree.
clear picture.
I 100% agree with Lorenz. And while he was talking, I was also thinking, like, authenticity also means that, employer branding is not just pushing stuff out there. It's also how you're perceived and how genuine you are. To give you a very concrete example, for me as a co-founder, it's very important that everyone has a cool experience with interacting with us as henchmen from every point of view. So if, for instance, a student requests a demo, a lot of sales team will just disregard that request. And for me, I always say to the salespeople, it's very important that we, at least send an email to say, hey, we noticed you're a student. Is there anything we can help with? Not spend too much time on it, but if you're not responding, it's not very nice. And your name will be tainted in a way because their friend might be saying, hey, I'm going to a henchman, or I'm thinking of going to a henchman. Oh yeah, they're assholes. They never responded to my message. Like it's every touch point matters as well. I think that's a culture factor.
Wow. Okay, very cool. I think you all three touched upon it, and it's the cultural aspect. You hear a lot about branding your culture, and I was at a tech venue a couple of weeks ago, and this entrepreneur really stated it. For me, the culture is really the rituals you perform and the consequent behavior you show. Is it that important? Is that your look on culture, and where authenticity and employer branding can match up when you show what you do inside of your company and portray this to the external world? Iman, what would you say?
I think it's different for every company, just similar to how Jorn said, depending on the size of the business, it's very different. Authenticity, what Lorenz said, I 100% agree, but as a business grows, it's different. Yeah. And obviously you grow, your culture is very different. For us, when we were 20 people, it was very, very different. Whereas today, our business just grew internationally. It grew around the globe as well, but also we have different ethnicities. So that makes a part of our culture, but also the way that we want our culture to be. Clearly, culture is linked for people, but for us to obviously put that out there on our career page, etc., is for us one of the triggers that people are interested. If they see there are 20 different ethnicities around from Singapore up to London, some people do actually find it interesting, especially the phase that we are at. But again, it's depending on every phase of the business.
True. Okay, interesting stuff. So show what you're doing inside of the company and portray it outside. Be authentic. Don't only look at your own social media, but also to the mainstream press, and be nice and gentle to everyone you encounter, every touch point you have with people. Would that wrap it up, or anything to add on the employer branding part?
I think that's a good one. Definitely.
Okay, cool. If you have any remaining questions, the attendees, please feel free to share in the chat. Okay.
There was one question in the chat, by the way.
Yeah, but I think Iman, you already answered it, if I'm not mistaken. So
yes, correct. I already answered.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So second topic is the recruitment process, and you see a lot of things going on the recruitment process. We see big corporates really, well, not downgrading, but making their recruitment process as lean as possible, really taking out every part that could be an obstacle for people to really engage with the company. We see another trend of people saying, well, we're obviously not doing that because it doesn't show any motivation if you're if you're repelled by a little obstacle. What is your view on the situation? Can I start with you, Jorn? How lean or mean does your recruitment process have to be according to you?
Well, I think I don't think I'm the right person to ask this question, since we're very small and still lean and mean. So we like to avoid a lot of processes.
Yeah.
But I think what we've learned in the past is that the expression hire slow, fire fast. We definitely made mistakes at that level in the past, and I think we're learning from that. So I think for crucial roles, we're involving a lot of people to be involved in the hiring process. Yeah. But in terms of streamlining that process, it's very much, I have to say, startup-y. So I think Iman or Lorenz will be a better party to ask that question to.
But is it something you're concerned with, having a too long of a process, or is that something you consciously think about?
So we use AngelList, so people request get in there. So sometimes I check it because I'm afraid that we might have missed an application, something like that. But yeah, besides that, I think we usually pick up everything quite well, and we sync on a daily basis with the management team, and it's still the management team that's hiring people. So it's quite transparent today.
Okay. So Iman, Jorn referred to you as being the expert on this process. How do you find a good balance between a thorough enough process but not a prolonged process?
I think within my experience, I can add on top of what exactly Jorn said. When you're a small company, the process is very rigid and very straightforward because you have very little stakeholders. So that means 9 out of 10 is founders or co-founders, and they're the decision makers. So if it's not themselves that actually do the interviews, and it's through a HR, recruiter, or whatever, or even an office manager, then it's actually office manager and immediately the stakeholders. Sometimes it's just 2 interviews, sometimes 3 interviews, and it's really very rapid and very interactive. Whereas as the business grows, you have much more levels and much more people involved. Why? Because you obviously have HR involved, you have stakeholders, you have the team that they want to assess. Sometimes very specific roles, you have assessments. So it takes much longer. And the reason being why is because you want to obviously make sure that you have the right person in place and that you involve the right people. You have the inclusion element that's very important for people, but also allows the candidate to see what culture you have. So as the business grows, you can go from 3 levels up to 5 interview stages. And for executive searches, sometimes it's 8 to 9 interview stages. So it's really to make sure that you have the right candidate. Clearly, it's never 100% something set in stone. Sometimes always a gamble, but you make sure that you're not biased and you make sure that you give the candidate the possibility to prove themselves and that all the stakeholders and people have the inclusion elements in the interview process.
Okay. Lorenz, do you have anything to say on this topic? How lean and mean are your processes of hiring?
Like Jorn, I'm a co-founder, a startup guy, a scale-up guy, and when it gets too big, I don't like it anymore, and I don't fit the system anymore. So it's very personal, of course, and I agree that it depends. As Iman said, the bigger companies have different needs. But let's look at companies with less than 50 team members, which is typically the case in the ventures where I'm involved in, at least in the beginning. Pre-exit, I would say. I put a lot of attention on getting the directors also involved or co-founders to find their own staff. And it's easy to go to consultants and recruiters and almost traffickers of people, of talent. But it's really such a difference when someone contacts you and says, hey, I'm a co-founder of this company and I really think we're a good match. Then, oh, I'm a guy working for a company that is growing fast, and it's much less authentic. You can't be be just true there. This guy is just the only reason he wants you is because he'll make 20% of your salary, or 30, or so, sometimes even more of your salary. And so I personally, especially in the early stage, like to avoid these things and really go after it yourself. Like, hey, I've just been I was one of the first employees, and now I'm leading up engineering in this company. And we need people like you. It's such a different approach. So that's very important for me. The second part where we give a lot of attention to is the whole onboarding process. That's the only real process we typically put a lot of attention on, because the first weeks are extremely important. People feel welcome. They know what to do. They know how to do it. And they know who everyone is. I typically want everyone to have to at least have seen everyone at one occasion very soon in the process after they got hired, just because it's so strange and so awkward to be in the same room with someone you don't know the name of, and they don't know your name, and you're a founder of a company. It's just so it is almost unrespectful that they have to. And I've seen it often happens, and I decided I don't want this to happen anymore. So it's the same thing. Just be very kind and gentle to everyone, and also do this to the new people, because that's also when they get most enthusiastic about getting other people to join. That's also when they talk a lot about their job, about this new experiences, new adventures, to friends, and often that's where we also get other talent.
Cool. It's an interesting new perspective you bring to the table, Lorenz. Do you think that makes sense for a bigger company, Iman, to keep the managers engaged also on the sourcing part? Because
on a bigger company, to be really honest, they don't have the time for it. So integrity, if I were to go and say to our head of engineering, go and find your people, or just say, I have no time. So it really starts, I think, from what Lorenz said, from even between the 30 up to the 60 benchmark, where even directors then are much more executional, and they need to do much more operational stuff and have less time to start looking for their own staff, that they'll then start to look for help within the recruitment process. But unfortunately, whenever I've worked with startups, it really starts from the 20 to 30 above, they really then at that time start to need help, because they don't have the time to look for people, interview them, etc. And even sometimes it's really also the expertise.
Yeah. A small intermediate hack is to give your password to one of your colleagues of LinkedIn, so that they can start reaching out, increasing the success rate of responses, and then you actually engage in the conversation. That is also a way of...
I love the fact that Jorn just took that, knowing I did that with them at Inturo. But yeah, great.
That's cool. We like hacks. That is cool. That is cool. So maybe a last question on the recruitment process, because you see a lot of organizations playing around with this process, like what is essential, what do we need to know. And I'm talking about things like personality surveys, intelligence surveys, assessments, telephonic pre-screening, stuff like that. You see a lot of companies playing around with those and really basically chucking things out because they want a lean process. Out of your experience, what would you say is essential, and what would you say is replaceable, or you can eliminate because it doesn't bring exactly the value that you want as a recruiting company? Yeah, feel free to start.
I would say my immediate response is, like, every role is different, and every process looks entirely different. So I would say if you're hiring a designer, it would be foolish not to give them an assignment, and you can choose whether you can pay them for that, or you'll give them a coupon or whatever. Depends on the intensity of the assignment. But I'm very diligent when it comes to creative profiles. you lose a lot if you do the wrong hire, right? You want to give them a bit of time, 3 to 4 months, then you need to fire them again. You need to find someone else. So easily you can lose up to a year.
Yeah.
So it's quite essential that you have the crucial testing phase in place. And I think with an engineer, it looks different. And if I look at my organization today or our organization today, every role would have a different recruitment process, like every single one of the people that we have with us. So I wouldn't skip anything if it's crucial to the role.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Jorn. Anyone else, Iman? I saw you unmuted yourself.
Yes, I think for every role, you clearly have a different process. That's number one. I think for everyone who ever worked with me, I'm very diligent in terms of hiring people, and I always include an assessment. Why? Because I test certain things. It's not because it's not worthwhile, but I actually see if the candidate does an effort of actually participating, because candidates are the past years quite, especially sales profiles, quite lazy in doing an effort. To see if they do an effort, but also because a lot of the candidates actually 8 out of 10 drop off during that stage, because sometimes they don't understand it, sometimes they don't ask a lot of questions, sometimes they just don't put a lot of effort, and at that time I actually already see where they're standing. And for engineer profiles, it's totally different, because there you can utilize certain tools to actually test their skill set in coding in certain language, etc. We at Integrity, for example, do that differently. We have our expert developers that actually create a case, and on the spot during an interview they ask them questions and they code a small thing, because they just want to see how they would react at that immediate problem or to that immediate code. However, every role or every department has a totally different interview process depending on the need or profile we're looking at that time. And in terms of toolings, what can replace, clearly in the beginning we're looking at so many interview tools, video interview tools, etc. But we saw that it was actually Zoom and Teams were sufficient for us, because our internal process was quite rigid. And assessment tools, yes, we looked at it for engineering. We looked at a lot at assessment tools, but also on personality tests. We have been utilizing a couple of them, and we've been utilizing just assessments through different tools like Test Gorilla. And you have a couple of other ones where we actually really see certain skill set for roles. These are really the ones that we utilize as an organization. Otherwise, all our assessment of business case are done internally.
Okay. Anything important you want to add to that, Lorenz?
Well, I think one of the bigger dangers, I'm again talking from an early stage perspective, is the unconscious bias, especially for founders who do it themselves, who don't have like trained recruiters who are aware of the dangers of this unconscious bias. I think for them, using tools and technology for screening and for testing is a very good and very efficient weapon against unconscious bias, against discrimination, against beauty bias, against similarity bias, which affects you much more when you're recruiting as a co-founder or as a director directly. So I think, and not only for that, of course, there's many other areas where tools can really do a excellent job. And I'm a big believer of HR tech in general, and that is just very early stage still, and there is so much more to do to make people more happy in their work.
Okay, thank you. In sake of time, we'll proceed to the next topic. Oh, yeah, there it is. So obviously, there's a lot of people fishing for the same talent. Yeah. So, and I think it was related with a lot of questions coming in from the attendants, like, okay, where do you find talent where other people aren't looking, and especially when you don't have the packages of big companies and you want to attract talent and maybe experienced people, but you don't have the packages to really get into the direct competition. So What are your secrets and lessons learned related to finding good talent that is affordable and that you're able to convince to join your company? Yeah, Lorenz, let me start with you.
Yeah, I think it's very obvious, but one of the most important pools for us is interns and first-time jobbers. But especially interns, it gives you and them a try and buy is not the right word, but it's so important that they have felt the culture, they have seen how the company works, they actually get the endorsement from the other team members. Hey, you should start here. It's for again, especially for early stage, it's very difficult for early stage ventures to get interns. But I think it's an amazing experience for the interns, and it in many cases people also stay. And I can still say that in many of the companies I founded or co-founded, I would say a big chunk of the directors who are still in place, still running these businesses and are executives now, they started as a trainee or as a first-time job in those ventures. So that's definitely where I give a lot of attention to. It gets more difficult, of course, and that Iman can tell more about when you really have to go after more experienced staffers, and when the requests are, oh no, we don't want to train them, we want them to be plug and play, or even take all this misery from my desk or from my plate. Then it gets more challenging, of course.
Okay, Iman, how do you attract talent that is affordable?
We already talked about it. Okay.
Oh, someone just unmuted.
Yeah, I know that she's leaving at 4:30, so I was
I'll find out.
Yeah, if you can.
I think someone is doing an interview. Wait, let me check that. Yeah, should be fine now. Iman.
I think I have a longer list than Lorenz for sure.
Yeah.
To add on top of that for us is really, it starts with the easiest one, and that's employee referrals. We don't always think about it, but the people that you have internal are sometimes the best ambassadors for you to find your other people. They will have people within the community. If it's not one person, it must be 2, 3, 4, and you incentivize them. You tell them they bring someone on board, you get Jorn at yours, you get and then a new swag, you get a tablet, you get a voucher, so you incentivize them, and they will always refer people for sure. So that really works well for us at Integrity. We've hired really quite some people in the business that really came through referrals, and you give them a visibility of all the roles. So if it's not someone in engineering, they know someone in marketing, someone in office management, have someone in sales, so they will have someone in the network. We recently just hired someone who referred their brother for the same role in sales because they thought, well, I really genuinely believe that they have the right skill sets. So for us, that's a big one. A second one, where clearly really the rigid kind of process, is LinkedIn headhunting. We still do it's maybe the old-fashioned way, but headhunting internally for us is really one of our number one priorities still to date. So we have recruiters who do that day in, day out.
Yeah. Can I ask an extra question related to that? Yeah. I hear a lot from recruiters. There are two challenges. One, finding the people and spotting the talent, which sometimes you overlook. And two, convincing them, really getting them to open up to a new possibility. Could you elaborate on the second part? What are the convincing strategies that work?
No, definitely. I think throughout my entire career, I've always learned that people only change roles for 3 different things. They want to change because they want a better salary. Yeah. They want to change because they want a career growth and a new level up in their role, or they want a new challenge as a new environment, something exciting and a more rewarding kind of environment. Because it's really these kind of things, and sometimes always linked with the environment, sometimes also location. They want to change location. So it's really these 3 things. And whenever we send out a message, we generally do add these things: salary, this is our budget more or less, these are the benefits, this is the location and the environment. You will come into a business of 80 people internationally. We do events together. You will get learning and development budget, these kind of perks. And then you spark their interest. Clearly, if they're not interested, they will just say, sorry, not interested. But if they are, then it does spark your interest. And we do hybrid work as well. So some people that triggers them. So for us, it's not always working from the office. You can work remote as well. And and it's really something that we leave open to our employees to say, you can work 1 day from the office, 2 days in the office, and you can choose more or less which day it is.
Wow. Interesting list, and a very clear list. It's clearly based on experience, Iman.
Yeah, so it's really these things that we've seen in headhunting that really sparks interest. And our job ads, we always put in the LinkedIn message the job ad that refers them to our career page or a LinkedIn job ad.
Okay, so you're that concrete in a first outreach, yeah.
Yes.
Wow. And there's a lot being said about nurturing. Isn't that going against the nurturing part, just jumping in with the concrete vacancy or role, or what is your experience on that?
For us, nurturing comes more with active candidates. So candidates that reach out themselves, that apply, etc. There's more the nurturing side of things. But candidates that's actually headhunting, there's no nurturing. There's a direct approach. It's like business development, right? So you just need to get out there, get an outreach, get a first interest. And really the buy-in is in the first phone call. When they say, yes, I'm happy to listen, then you really listen to what they say. You take it with you throughout the entire process. We're very rigid in our summaries. Say, okay, this is their current salary, this is their expectation, and they really want this. And then they want to move because they have no recognition. They want something new. They want their manager, their current manager is not that great with them. So we take that feedback with us.
Yeah.
And throughout the entire process, all the managers see this kind of feedback loop. So they are aware during the interview, oh, I see that you want to leave because of this. I see that this is your expectation, and they can always reconfirm.
Wow. Something interesting. You've been sharing a lot of interesting things, all three of you. Thanks very much. But one thing you said, it's a bit like business development, and we see some very interesting examples also with clients using Tracy, who really focus on the subset of skills and hire SDRs as recruiters, or hire recruiters as SDRs. So superficially, it doesn't make sense, but when you look at behavior and subset of skills, it makes perfect sense. And is that a secret pool on approaching people from a different angle, I would say?
Oh, definitely. I think totally in the beginning, what you said is there's a skills gap, but we at Integrity, especially the lower ladder, do look at people that only have skills. For us, as yours, if they have coachability, they have a good work ethic, they have prior success in like pure that business development, whether it's an internship, whether it's telesales, whether it's even selling just newspapers, we take that as actually prior success. And really that kind of work ethic of saying, okay, I'm not a stopper, I have a perseverance, I want to keep going. And yes, these are skill set that recruiters have. So one of our best performing SDRs has a background in recruitment.
Wow.
So we've seen that balance a lot.
Yeah, and you see it more and more, people being switched in careers purely based on these skill set and behavioral traits. So that's cool. I saw you nodding also, Jorn.
Yeah, so I like to add, so what does a business development rep do? And he or she is constantly preoccupied with conversion rates, right? So they're identifying a range of people, they send emails, they try to get hold of them. So every touch point matters once again. So I think the more you can convey of what they can get, but also whether they can identify whether there's a match. For instance, in our previous company, but also this one of the values was, don't take yourself too serious, but we are very serious about our product. I think in your first outreach, regardless of the 3 pillars that Iman mentioned, you could get some of that intel in there with a cool I don't know, employer branding video that you have that shows that you guys don't take yourself too serious. And if that is a person that is looking for an environment like that, that's immediately comes across and increases your conversion rate on the first touch point, right?
Yeah.
So, and I think if you look at it like that a bit, it makes absolute sense.
Super. And it's a bridge to our next topic also, and culture. How have you experienced the importance of culture in the hiring process? We hear a lot of things being said on young people being extremely sensitive to culture and a cultural match. Is that something you experience also, and something you can use as a convincing element? Like, hey, you really fit our culture, or yeah, do you get responses like, okay, that's good, but what do I get paid? Or is there a shift in balance between things like culture, the more soft things, and the more packages and wages and stuff like that? What would you say? Iman, I saw you unmuted. Yep.
They're both as important. I do
Okay.
not believe that the one is above the other one. I do not believe if I today say to a candidate, I'll give you 5K, but our culture is rubbish, just come ahead and join us. And they say, yeah, I'm there. No, they're literally as important. And sometimes even not. Culture sometimes goes above package because there's so many offers on the table to date. So culture is so crucial. I have heard it so many times that people say, I actually declined my offer because your culture really was so appealing, and I felt like it's really my spot to be. So culture is really crucial, and it's important that you actually, from the first kind of interaction with candidates, already give them the feeling what kind of culture. We're a very lively and buzzy kind of culture, so people, when they talk to you, want to feel that. If you have a very monotone kind of tone of voice, believe me, they will not get interested. So you need to hype them up. Exactly what Jorn again said. As yours, it's business development, right? You need to get them hyped up. You need to get them with you in the story. But culture is crucial to make them understand that these are little things that are crucial for us as values, as belief. But this is the environment you will get into, so that they can see themselves and visualize themselves within that organization.
Well, it's great to see that you see this impact also, because we see that also with our customers. Because with Tracy, you can do a cultural scan on people's LinkedIn page. And often our clients reach out and say, hey, we see you might have a great cultural fit because you are this, this, and this, and our culture is this. And we see a lot more of engagement on these under your skin messages. So great that you're aligned with that. Yeah. Lorenz, anything you would want to add on the importance of culture when recruiting and hiring and branding that
No, well, it's just be straightforward and make sure that you meet the expectations. When you say that you have an entrepreneurial environment, for example, typically that doesn't go very much hand in hand with remote working. I'm not a big fan of it at all, because you want to be all together at the same place and working together on it. I have so much bad experiences with remote working, but it's very personal, of course. That's our culture in many. And if you want it, there's a lot of jobs where they just want remote working, and they even put it as a value. But you have to be very honest and straightforward about it from the beginning. That there's no long weekends at home and things like that in a very entrepreneurial environment. On the other hand, you also have to give something in return for that. If you say it's entrepreneurial, we always give equity to all employees. Even I remember even cleaning ladies having had it. Everyone in the company shares a part of the success in the company. So there is no discrimination there, and it's extremely important. I think if you want to. It's not just to keep people, it's mainly to be straightforward and say, hey, this is one of our values and this is what you get in return for it. So giving equity is probably one of the most. It's very difficult because it's something you give as a founder. You take away your own equity and you give it to someone else who works together with you. It's one of the most difficult things to do often, and yeah, and it's a big struggle always. Should I do it, or is it worth it? Won't I regret it, and things like that. All the times I've done it, I have not regretted it, and I have regretted it when I didn't do it, or then I didn't give to people what they deserve. So just be very authentic in if that's one of your values, which is in my case one of them. Be open about it. And when there's things that it's also important to say these things are not in our culture. That's something we don't do. Remote working is for example, it's not that we don't do it, but we don't glorify it for sure.
Wow, interesting. Be
Very,
clear on
very
what,
beautifully put.
yeah. You have a fan, Lorenz. That's for sure.
He also has one. And Iman also has one.
Be very kind to each other. We learned this in this session. Okay, last topic. You're all very familiar with tech environments, so you're all very familiar with the tooling stack that sales and SDRs have, like LinkedIn and Salesloft and all these kinds of tools that help efficiency and effectiveness. And there's a tendency, there's a lot of things heading in the way of the recruiters. So can you share some things on recruitment technology that you're using or not using, and the reason why you're using it or not yet using it? Iman.
Very good, interesting question, Jorn, because there is so many out there.
Yeah.
There really are so many out there. We've utilized totally in the beginning a video interviewing tool that helped us, but we saw that the value of it was actually very similar to what we have in Zoom and Teams, but it had much more processes and questions including. But what we utilize a lot as a biggest thing in recruitment tech is an ATS system, which means we need to have an ATS system that has all the candidates in there, their CVs, to make sure it's compliant and that we have track of where they're standing, but also to get in touch with them in the past and in the future again. So that's absolutely of essence to us. Depending on your growth phase of your business. So we only really implemented it since beginning of this year, where we were around 60. We also implemented a HR tool where we have all the salaries, the documentation such as contracts, policies, etc., the absences. So that is really important for us as a HR management tool where we utilize it. And then we have also an extra tool, which is more for employee experience, such as the performance reviews, the surveys that we send out, the goal setting, so OKRs. So these are the biggest elements for us. And like, it's not really, it's HR and recruitment, but recruitment specifically were ATS and assessments. For us to date, it's really that. And LinkedIn is our biggest bread and butter.
Okay. Jorn, can you share a bit on the tooling you use in your HR recruitment process, if there are any?
Yes, it will be a bit hacky, of course, but that's how we do it now. So, of course, LinkedIn is essential. We use AngelList more for technical profiles. Also, to put up our job descriptions, we do an AngelList. So if you go to our company website and you click on a job open position, you will go to AngelList, where it's easy for you to submit your application, right? And then everything happens through the channels we're using now, Zoom and whatnot. And then, of course, after, when we want to sign, we use PandaDoc to do digital signing. And then, of course, we also use an HR efficient. I think we all know it for, tracking everything that, from wage to other benefits, anything is all put in there. And I think that kind of sums it up as to what we use in the whole process.
Okay. Lorenz, thank you. Thank you, Jorn. Lorenz, you were saying you're a fan of HR tech. Do you have something special up your sleeve that you might share?
It's different in every venture again. It really depends on who runs it, and they choose their own tools. I'm a big fan of Jorn because it's a little bit more all-in-one and it's very accessible, especially to startups who just start. I think we use all the platforms mixed one with another. AngelList also. But what I'm more interested in is like looking more into what are the skills of these people and mainly also what are their expectations. Because we see, especially when it comes to tech profiles, there's a lot more independence all the time from the identification or the contractification of the industry within tech is really huge, and not only with tech profiles but also commercial profiles. In Belgium, mainly for fiscal reasons also, but it's such a different market now, and these people, they typically have completely different job titles and what they typically are doing. So really digging into what the skills and expectations are is something what I'm still missing, because right now it's very linear or basic what we're doing, just typing keywords and really mainly looking in our own network. So there's a lot more to do there.
Wow. Thank you, Lorenz, and thank you all, because we're maybe one question, because we're in the HR and actually the semi-automated sourcing technology, and you see it is shifting. It has been shifting for the last year and a half. I think the platform is burning and people are opening up to decision supporting tools that can help them find more candidates in a non-linear way, I would say, using AI. But there's still some hesitance. So Iman, what would you say? What would you say as the main source of hesitance to try these kind of tools?
I think if we talk about pure automation of messages, I myself am not a big fan of it, because then you get a robot kind of feeling, and people, obviously candidates, employees, ourselves are becoming much more smarter to see whether or not the message is actually written by a person or by a robot and just sent to 1,000 other candidates. So that is important. We do not utilize that. So we still have an old-fashioned. It takes a lot of time. There's more the authentic, and we have a higher conversion rate on that. So hence we actually never utilize that. In terms of just like AI tools that can help with recruitment, so far I haven't really used or really done any research about it, to be honest.
Okay, then you came to the right spot, Iman. No. Okay. No, but we see for example in US there are some tools that do pre-screening on mostly 99% on hard skills, but it allows candidates that send their resume to have an answer within the minute. So you upload your CV, and within the minute you get, hey, thanks for applying to us. We are missing some pieces of this and this, but really feel free to reach out again when you have this and this. Or, hey, very welcome to apply within the minute. And I think also these kind of tools are available in Europe and in Belgium, and even go a step further, like not only screening on hard skills, but also on soft skills in the case of Tracy. So that really could benefit the candidate experience also, and not being obliged to manually go through all these endless LinkedIn profiles and just say, hey, robot, I'm looking for this kind of person with this kind of behavior. Get a shortlist sent over to me, and then we'll have this authentic message sent out by the person. So yeah, Lorenz, you want to add something to that?
Oh, well, I think if you look at HR tech, I think there's so much out there, and there's a lot of crap also out there, to be very fair. There's a lot of initiatives we at PitchDrive, for example, a lot of the applications we get are from HR tech also. I'm on the one hand, a big believer, but there needs to be a wave of consolidation in that market, because you cannot expect every person in charge of recruitment to use all these different tools. They need one sales force with a lot of plugins, and there's maybe a plugin market, but right now everything is like very separate and spread out. And I don't know yet which is going to be the central one, which is going to be used. Iman probably knows it better than me, but from what I see, there's a good consolidation and a good, creation of some ecosystems, 1, 2, or 3 within the industry that are really strong, and everyone knows and everyone has access to, would make all this technology much more accessible and much more effective than today.
Mm-hmm. Interesting view. Okay, sorry, I'm over speeding things up. So I see some people need to leave. Maybe you as a speakers need to leave too.
I have to leave indeed. So
yeah, please. So let me thank you very much. It has been massively inspiring, interesting, very clear. Not always fully aligned, but I think there's also the richness in having these different views for different stages. So thank you very much, Iman, Jorn, and Lorenz, for attending and speaking at this small event for you. But I think it will bring big value to everyone listening to it, and also maybe the recording afterwards. So thank you very much. I think if any of the attendees have questions, I guess they can reach out via LinkedIn. And then wishing you all lots of success in your endeavors, and speak soon. Lorenz is sharing his credentials. So
well, see you soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Super. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.